Hello and welcome to this episode of Kaleidoscope, the podcast, all about change and transformation. My guest this morning is Jane Sandford. Jane and I met many years ago online, strangely enough, probably during those times when everybody was meeting online, at least said soon as mended, through the Priority Academy, and we were each other's practice buddies. And we were having a little discussion beforehand. We're not sure what all we practiced together, but we think it was EFT tapping. I know you did the Silva method and you practiced
Yeah.
with me, which was a lovely, lovely session. But it's that long ago, and we did that much. We can't really remember what all we practiced with each other. But it was great times, and we've stayed in contact and in touch on Facebook and so on and so forth, as people do. So, Jane, I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to ask you the four questions that I ask all my guests, and then I'm just going to hand it over to you for you to answer the four questions in whatever way suits you. So, the four questions, as always, are: what was life like before the change? What was life like during the change? What was life like after the change? And what does the future hold? Not that any of us have a crystal ball, but we kind of sometimes know where we'd like for it to go. So,
Mm.
Jen, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Jane Sandford. So, what was life like before the change? It was restrictive. Restrictive. It was controlled. I was in an abusive relationship. I was in two abusive marriages. And each one, it leaves a lasting impact on you. Mentally, the first one was physical. The second one was more mental, emotional abuse. And it has a lasting impact on how you see the world around you. I didn't trust anybody. Um, yeah, it wasn't occasional. The abuse was relentless, especially with the second one. And my thoughts and my actions and my sense of self-worth, it just felt like it was being dictated to me by somebody else. Everything just felt like that. So I internalized as well. I internalized the things I was told. I was made to feel small. I was told I wasn't good enough. I was incapable. And also, I was dependent. I felt very, very dependent on my abuser. And I started to believe that I wasn't smart enough. Wasn't smart enough to leave. I wasn't strong enough to manage on my own. I didn't deserve a better life. I'm probably saying all the things that so many people say. And this kind of became my foundation. It became the foundation of how I saw myself. Um, and my days were spent just trying to keep calm, trying not to spark that fire, managing somebody else's emotions and reactions, and it was absolutely exhausting. But I think this is where I started coming into the holistic phase, perhaps. I learned to anticipate moods and avoid conflict and, just navigate everything really, really carefully. Um, because my life depended on it, basically. If I hadn't done that, who knows what would happen. But I did stop considering my own needs. I stopped considering myself entirely, entirely. It didn't feel like an option at the time. And then over time, you disconnect from yourself. It's like I didn't think about what I liked. I didn't have any dreams. Um, there was nothing actually. I was just like, I likened it at the time that was like an empty shell, but I'll get into this when it comes to, during the change or at the change, decisions were made for me, what to do, how to act, what to wear. In my first marriage, I could only wear like black, white, and grey and red. A little bit of red popped into it. Um, and that was the life I was living. I didn't know how to challenge it at the time. I was very young when I married the first one, and the second one actually. So I didn't really have any adult life experiences on my own. It was all through somebody else. Um, so life was small, life was closed off. Um, I didn't have the space to think about the future. Like I said, I had no dreams. And I told myself put up with it for a bit longer, things will change, things will get better. Yeah. But deep down I didn't truly believe that. I just didn't know how to get out of it. And it was just like a lie I told myself just to keep me going. And I was just stuck. I was stuck in a cycle I couldn't break. I think because of the first one, the first abusive marriage kind of put me into victim mode. And obviously, when you're into victim mode, you attract more more abusers. So, the second one, like I said, I think the first one was more physical violence, the second one was more emotional abuse. And bruises heal, but the emotional side of things, it takes, it's not just a few days and it's gone. Um, but yeah, there wasn't couldn't see a way out. It wasn't because there wasn't a way out. I just couldn't see it, and the abuse had convinced me that I didn't have the strength, or the right to leave. And yeah, that was just, looking back, I can see just how deeply entrenched that was in me at the time and how much it shaped every aspect of my life. Um, so yeah, that's what life was like before the change. And the actual change itself, during the change, it was, I'm not going to go into too much depth because I was going to say it's still quite painful, but it's not. It's just something, I look at it and I think, oh, that poor girl, that she went through that. But so everything shifted in just like one day for me. And I can't fully explain it, but I heard a voice, it wasn't just in my head. It wasn't just a thought or an idea. I actually heard a voice as if someone was speaking to me directly. And it was calm and it was clear. And it said, "What are you doing? You're an intelligent woman. Just get out." So there was obviously some little bit inside me that held on to this. It wasn't my imagination. And a little bit, the tiniest last bit of strength just said, "Yeah, actually, I am an intelligent woman. What on earth am I doing?" And it was just like that. And the day after, I went and I put myself in a refuge and got out of it that way. It was real. That voice, it just stopped me in my tracks completely. Um, and it cut through all that noise and it cut through all that self-doubt. And it, I was reminded of who I truly was, even though, obviously I wasn't cured instantly, but it was just that push that I needed just to get out, to get out. And yeah, like I said, it was not a clairaudience or something. It was a voice. I heard it. And I didn't argue with it. It didn't need to convince me. It simply stated a fact, you know, and I believed it, for the first time. I believed it. So that was it. Like I said, it didn't all happen at once. It just gave me that push that I needed. And the process it was slow, it was uncertain. I spent 6 months on my own because that's what I needed. I got into another relationship which wasn't abusive, but it was very controlling. But it seems weird, but it was what I needed because he actually taught me life, all the things that I hadn't seen. It was, I think it was a little bit of cruel to be kind, if that makes sense. I mean, he wasn't the one for me, but he was more like a mentor, as it were. So whilst we were in a relationship, he was more a mentor type, and yeah, he helped me a lot. It's indescribable what he did, but it's not in a bad way, in a good way. He really, really helped me a lot. So yeah, and a lot of things. It was a hard truth to take that I mean, I can look back now and say I put myself through that. But obviously, we don't know what we're doing, so we can't blame ourselves. So I kind of looked at what resources were available to me, and there are resources out there for anybody. Like I said, I put myself in a refuge. Women's Aid is absolutely amazing. You put yourself in there, they give you everything. They just help you so much. Um, but then fear was always there, like hovering in the background, even throughout all this. Especially when my ex found out where the refuge was, because his sister had been in it. So then they just moved me to another refuge, basically. So, I did worry. People's fear was always there, and I worried about the risks and about what happened if I failed. I say failed, how I would manage on my own. But, I did. I did. And, there were days when the fear was awful, but, paralyzing even. But what I did, I got a calendar. And for each day that I had a good day, I put a smiley face. And it got to a point where all I wanted was smiley faces. I didn't want to see a sad face. So things got easier. And I actually met one lady who I met her once. I've not seen her since. And she gave me an affirmation, which is, I'm strong and I'm loved. I'm strong and I'm loving. I'm strong and I love it. And I just made sure I was just going over and over and over in my head this affirmation. And, those smiley faces got more and more and more. Um, so, so yeah, I think the hardest part of leaving was just not knowing what was ahead. Um, but in a way, look back now, and that's the challenge, isn't it? That's the challenge, and we learn from what happened. So yeah, so leaving wasn't a single decision; it's a process. So for anybody wondering about that, so yeah, I didn't have everything figured out, obviously, but yeah. So yeah, so after I left, what was like life after the change? So the change obviously is the leaving. The change was hearing the voice. Um, because that also opened up my intuition. I was like, where did this voice come from? What was this voice? And I'll talk about the book Sorrel later, that I've written. It's actually part of a bigger. It's a very, very concise, to the point scribbling, as I say, but it's part of a bigger version, which I'll explain later. So yeah, so it was once I'd opened my eyes and once I'd been with partner number three, shall we call it? um, once I'd been with him and he'd opened my eyes to, the way the world really worked. And he actually said something to me. I was brought up in Hong Kong and I had such a privileged background growing up from being in Hong Kong. And it was him, he actually said to me, do you realize what privileged upbringing you had? And I hadn't. So when I kind of opened my eyes, I can manage to take myself back to before, bit of timeline therapy perhaps going on there, before the abusive marriages and, what I was learning then. And it was kind of take a step back into that, become that person again, or start becoming that person again. And it just felt like I was stepping into a completely new world. Um, it was an undeniable sense of freedom. So for the first time in years, I could make my own decisions. And that kind of felt unfamiliar but exciting. And it was strange, like learning to walk again after being constrained for so long. But one of the first things I noticed was the quiet. Like I said, I lived on my own for 6 months. There was nobody questioning my choices. There was nobody criticizing my thoughts. There was nobody controlling what I did. Um, and that created a quiet, that, a space that I hadn't had in such a very long time. And for the first time, I could think about myself. I could think about what I was going to do, not in a selfish way, but in a way that allowed me to explore what I wanted and what I needed. And it wasn't an easy process. I developed so many habits, just in order to survive. Um, constant self-doubt, second guess yourself, that instinct just to seek approval, people pleasing. Um, so it's rebuilding trust in yourself as well, not just other people, because obviously you don't have that trust in other people. That's kind of erased for a while. But it's learning to trust yourself is the most important thing. And you can't trust anybody else if you don't trust yourself. It's like you can't love anybody else if you don't love yourself, because that's unfair, isn't it? So that took time. And I just had to constantly remind myself that I was capable, my decisions were valid, even if they weren't perfect. And then after a while, I started to see that what I'd been through was that was instrumental in my strength. So, I started to see the strength that I'd gained through going through all that. There were times, especially towards the end of the second one, where I'm lucky to be here, shall we say. Um, but yeah, when you can look back and say, oh well, that's how where I got this strength from, that's where I got that strength from. Um, so then I started getting more resilience, I got more clarity. Um, yeah, so leaving's not just about escaping a bad situation, it's about creating, your future. Um, so as I said earlier, healing, it's not just a straight path, it's not a quick fix, it's not a small thing, still challenges and doubt and fear does creep back in. But one other thing I started noticing as well was the joy that I felt in the tiniest of things. Having control over my time, deciding how to spend my days, just sitting in the safety of your own space, can bring you so much joy. We don't have to look for life-altering changes. We can, just sit in ourselves. But at the time they did feel monumental to me because I hadn't had it before, or not for a very long time anyway. And yeah, over time, things have changed from being painful to being meaningful. And the final thing, I think, for me, for getting over that second marriage, the emotional abuse, was when my son had a car accident. And it was a major car accident. We very nearly lost him. And I went to the hospital, and I knew it was going to be the first time in about 20 years that I saw my ex-husband. And the first thing I did was give him a hug, because I felt compassion towards him, because he was the only one that knew what I was going through, because it was our son. And I was the only one that knew what he was going through. He was the only one that knew what I was going through at the time. So yeah, there was compassion, the fact that we both thought we were gonna lose our son. Um, and it was at that moment, and first of all, my daughter was with me and she was like, "What is going on?" My son was like, "She did what?" Um, so yeah, that to me, it was closure. It was complete closure over that episode. Um, And like you say, doing the priority academy of everything, this is all part of that process of coming back, coming back to who you are. What was the fourth question?
What does the future hold?
What does the future hold? Yeah, like you said, we don't have a crystal ball, do we? Um, and I was going to say all these things about it's always now. How can we how can we do it? It's always now. And the future isn't a fixed point, is it? It's just constantly evolving, and it is always now. And I do try to remember that to the best of my ability. Um, but the future is shaped by what we do day by day, isn't it? I'm going to give you an answer. I know you want a proper answer. The future holds it's more of a passive income. You know, I've got over the past few years, I've got a nice little passive income going, but it's more of that. Um, that's not to say I just want to sit around and just like allow it all to come in because I'm doing workshops, face-to-face workshops, online workshops as well. But it is nice just to have the passive income coming in from courses and books and little bits and pieces like that. But so the future holds more or more grandchildren. Last year I became a grandmother for the first time, and but I was also made redundant. So being made redundant last year was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was already retraining, as you know, I was already retraining to do lots of things. And I'd kind of planned my escape, as it were. And I did a vision board in February last year. And on the vision board, I put lots of butterflies and all like holistic therapies and all this. And that was on the 4th of February. The third week of February, I was told I was up for redundancy. Talk about instant manifestation. And
So
I'd already planned to leave kind of on my birthday, which is the end of June. But they pushed it forward a little bit for me, so I went in April, but it was fine. Found a pension I didn't know I had, which was very nice. So that managed to keep me going to build up the business. I went out, I rent a room in the local wellbeing centre to do. It's mostly my hypnotherapy, but I also do my access bars and Reiki and EFT and all these bits and pieces. Yeah, I've just learned Indian head massage as well, so I know, constantly addicted. That's actually become my most popular one, the Indian head massage. People who were coming to me for other things, and I said, no, I want Indian head massage. Um, so so yeah, the future looks more of that, really. But like I said, more grandchildren, hopefully. Although I love my little granddaughter Rue, she is adorable. And each morning I start my day with one of the access bars saying, I don't know if you're familiar with access bars at all.
no, that's one of the things I've written down. I've written down a couple of things to come. That's why
Yeah,
the head goes down for me. Writing down and
yeah,
access bars is, yeah. What is
yeah.
access bars? What
What is
are access
access
bars?
bar? Access bars are points on your head, 32 points on your head that obviously we're all electric, our brains are electric, our fingertips are electric. And it's rewiring. It rewires. It's a bit like pressing Control Alt Delete, and it's such a gentle therapy as well. It's not like the
Lovely.
massage. Um, it's so gentle. I mean, if you could actually do it, if you put your hands behind your ears, there's a little bony bit, go a little bit further back from that, and just sit with that for a moment. And you can actually, you should be able to feel it. And it's just instant calm.
Mm,
It's nice, isn't it?
it is lovely. It is very lovely. And yes, you wouldn't get that from not as quick and not as deep from Indian head massage.
No. So that is just, it's quick, it's deep, and that's called the implant band. Um, so that's what access bars is, and then there are like 32 points on the head that you touch. Like I say, it's so gentle, and it's a bit like pressing Control Alt Delete in your brain.
Lovely.
One of my clients said it's like wiping away all your thoughts with a little damp duster.
Oh, very good.
That's my fit. The fact that she said a damp duster was
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
and there are a few like little affirmations or questions that you just ask of the universe. One is, how does it get any better than this?
Mm. Because it will
And
show you.
it will
That's a
show you.
fabulous
You will
question
get
because
your
it will show you. How can I get it any
and
better than this? And I'll go, well,
yeah,
let me
because
show you the
a
ways.
lot of people say, oh, it doesn't get better than this. And yeah, it does. It
No, don't
does.
say
Don't
that.
put
Yes.
that
Yeah.
out.
No.
Yeah. How
How
does
can
it
it
get
get
any
any
better?
better than this? Yeah.
And what else is possible?
I'd have always said what else is true. But yes, what else is possible works as well.
What
Yeah, yeah,
else
yeah,
is
definitely.
possible? An access bars kind of it empties that space. It kind of clears any blockages that you might have in your neural pathways. It will like zap through them. Um,
Brilliant.
obviously, the practitioner is using their intention while they're doing this. So there's lots going on with the practitioner. The client just sits there and lies there and enjoys it, but the practitioner is saying clearing statements and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, intention is key,
Key.
absolutely key. So the
It's like we've
future for
trained in the
me,
same academy,
it is absolutely. So for
using the
me,
same
the
language.
future, it's about the energy that I choose to live in right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
absolutely, absolutely.
it's just about being, it's about peace and clarity and purpose. And, I've learned that when I align these values in my present, life just unfolds naturally. It's all about being, you've got the be, do, have. So that is lots of people go
Hey,
do, have, and then be, but it's be, do, have. You have to be the person you want to be,
yeah,
um, to have the things you want to have to, or to do the things you want to do, to have the things you want to have.
yeah,
And you don't, if you live like that, you don't have to force anything. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be able to listen to your intuition, look out for the signs. Um, yeah. So what lies ahead? More growth, more connection, to people, to the universe, more opportunities. I'm just about managing to brush off that corporate the mask that I had. That's been quite difficult actually since being made redundant, is getting back into a softer, more feminine me rather than kind of a masculine corporate environment. Um,
and it's also difficult when you run your own business because there's masculine energy in that.
yeah,
Because to have a successful business, you've got to do the admin and you've got to do the finance and you've got to do the marketing and you've got to do the sales, and that's all masculine
you
energy.
are
I
you are
find,
everything, aren't you? You are
yeah,
everything,
absolutely.
and it's
So
a
you have to,
total
so
juggling act,
yeah, you
isn't it?
can't get rid of the masculine energy. The world would fall. It's like, we're not, it's not about man beating. Masculine energy is that doing, that structure, that, and the world would kind of fall apart without it. It would fall apart without the feminine energy as well. So I want to go back on just a couple of the things that you said about you can't blame yourself, or you couldn't blame yourself.
Yeah.
Totally, because I and this, I would have this argument with anybody that says, why didn't you just leave?
Sorry.
Because your partner, yeah, because people would have said that to me about my first, well, why didn't you just leave at the first sign of it? Because if the person had have hit you or emotionally abused you on your first date, you wouldn't have gone on a second date.
No.
They're not who they are. They don't appear who they really are for quite some time.
Mm,
And then when they do, it's not you're too far in, you're too
yeah.
far invested, you've made a life. For both of us, we both actually got married, witnessed in front of our friends and our family and our God, and how could you let everybody down if you left? And my parents were older, so it was this thing of, once you're committed, you're committed. You don't, divorce was
Yeah.
still very much frowned upon in our family. Um, though when I came home and they knew what had happened, it was like, why didn't you come home earlier? I'm like, and it was one of those, and I kept going back to the Bible looking for, and I again I a free jail card. I'm not. My husband was not abusive in the way that you're. We were both like you, too young, too inexperienced, and not a
Yeah.
good match. And instead of building each other up and promoting each other and being the best source for each other, we ended up tearing each other apart. So it's not that I
Mm,
wasn't in the kind of relationship that you were, um, but I think it's that people don't show you the red flags on the. If people got out their red flags on the first night, you would run, but they
yeah.
don't, and they don't show you them. And even when they do, they don't show you them all at once. It's one,
Yeah.
and then there's the apologies and the flowers and the. And thankfully, like as I say, I didn't go through any of that. But and you believe them because you love them. And
Yeah.
so yeah, you absolutely cannot
Interesting.
blame
One of
yourself.
yeah, the the third one, the mentor, shall we say, he actually said something to me that really did help me on the healing process, the healing journey. He said to me, "You can't blame him, my ex, because he's just a product of his upbringing."
Absolutely.
And that made me kind of sit back and think, I think that does start the healing process because it's like, oh gosh, yes, he is. That's all he knows. That's
Yeah,
what he's seen growing up.
precisely. Precisely.
Mm.
Um, then can't if I could read my writing. See, to be able to see the screen, which and I don't know what's going on with my camera this morning. It's doing autofocus and it's not focusing very well. Um, but to be able to see the screen, I have to take my glasses off. And I'm taking my glasses off, can't
You can't
actually
read.
see what I've written. Um, there's help out there, yes. And Women's Aid would be one of the groups that I work with. And I would occasionally go in when I'm invited in and to hold workshops about regulation because I'm trauma informed. I can go in and hold workshops about how to breathe and how to,
Yeah,
without putting it on them or making things worse or re-triggering them or and so it would be one of the charities that I would be. But it is that it, for me, emotional and physical abuse is usually very much behind closed doors. And as much as
yes,
we would love people to reach in and rescue us, they can't because they normally don't see. And usually people are very, very good at hiding it because you don't want people to know that's what's
yeah,
going on at home. Um, so the fact that those organizations and they are getting better and better, I've heard that they're going to put is it, women's aid staff or something into 999 call centers so that
okay,
when domestic abuse calls come in, there is somebody trained there to inform and help. And I know here in Northern Ireland at one time, I don't know whether it's still the case, please God it is, that actually when there was a domestic abuse call, somebody from Women's Aid went with the police so that there was a female trained, not a police
right,
officer that could be an authority figure and scary, therefore, um, but an empathetic female worker who could be there to say, to talk about the refuge and so on and so forth
yeah,
and help them pack up what they needed or whatever and get them out of there, which is, I think, is brilliant. I hope that's still happening. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. The help is out there, and there are lots of nice, safe places that you can go to. It doesn't have to be a refuge.
yeah,
There are different buildings, holistic therapists. A lot of them would have up, "We are a safe place." So if you go into your
yeah,
hairdresser or whatever and ask for help, if they have that sign, they will help you, which is great. Yes, the other thing that I couldn't read and I worked it out was the one defining moment. So true for so many people, and it happens in so many different ways. For me, it was a conversation with my husband. For you, it was a voice inside your head. For
yeah,
different people, it's that, but there is usually this process of life getting so bad, so bad, so bad, so bad, and then this one moment where everything just becomes clear. And then we have
yeah,
to move into that. And none of us know. For me, it was I had to resign my job. I'd got so ill. And it was like, what does the future hold with no steady income? And no,
yeah.
and that was 6 years ago. And do you know what? We pay our bills. And he pays for us to be able to not
Exactly.
have.
Like I was a bit like that myself last year. I was like, oh, what do I do now? But yeah, the bills are getting
It
paid.
work.
It's
And I think the
fine.
more you surrender, you were saying about being in the now and believing what's for you will come to you and all the rest, the more we surrender into that
Yeah. How
freedom
does it get
and
any
that
better than
live.
this? Just
Exactly. And just being us, this stuff will come to us more and more and more.
yeah,
Absolutely. Um, so you also then mentioned your book Soul, and I'd love to have a very, I know we're under time constraints because you have another appointment, but a
I
very
do.
brief chat for your book Soul.
My
Tell me
book
a little bit more about
Sorrel.
that.
Sorrel. Okay. So Sorrel
Sorrel,
started
is it? Oh, sorrel, not
Sorrel,
soul, sorrel.
Soryl. Sorrel. Um was it's based on the voice that I heard. And do you know what? In any other situation, you'd sound completely bonkers, wouldn't you? Yes, I'm hearing voices.
I've been locked up years ago.
Um,
You would have been in, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, we would, wouldn't we? So it's a presence. Sorrel is a presence. I like to see her as female, some kind of star being, intergalactic being, or some people might call her an angel or something like that. A presence, a warming presence, that offers wisdom and guidance on how I view life now, the change and the transformation, which is what this is all about. Um, so yeah, so it's those deeper truths and insights that have just helped me, you know, navigate my experience, my journey. It's just helped all the way through, and it does get you to the point where, yes, just be, and that's it basically in a nutshell. But the one thing that I wasn't expecting was the shadow side, having to go there.
And you
And
have to. I'm glad you said having, because you have to go
you
there. If you
have to
don't
go
go there, if you don't
there.
clear that stuff, it will haunt you your whole life. Yeah.
Exactly. And the the next book that's being written at the moment, and it's like I said, Sorrel is part of that, because in Sorrel it has got a short chapter on the shadows, but the next book is called The Shadows. And it's going there. It's
Yeah.
going there, but then interspersing all the things that I've learned from Sorrel into it. So
Very
yeah,
good.
you've got the shadows, and then it's like, and this is what I learned from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
I
it's
think,
all a
and
learning curve, isn't it?
our lives would not be anywhere near as interesting if we didn't have light and shade.
Exactly.
You couldn't see the
There'd be no
stars if the sun
contrast.
didn't go down.
Exactly, exactly,
So it shouldn't be. It is scary and it is difficult and it is hard, the dark night of the soul. But if you don't go through, you don't get to see the sunlight on the other side. That's
exactly.
the trade-off. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Brilliant.
don't know if you've, I don't, Coldplay's got a new album out called Moon Music. And one of the tracks in there, I think it's Maya Angelou saying it. I'm not quite sure. When it looks like the sun won't shine anymore, God put a rainbow in the sky.
Very
And
good.
it's very nice, yeah. So
So Sorrel is
I'm
available
holding on
on,
to that one. So yeah,
yeah,
Sorrel's been a gift. Sorrel's definitely a gift to me.
yes, channeled by the sound of things. Sorrel's available on Amazon now, is it?
It is available on Amazon, Kindle and paperback.
Lovely. Very good. And you'll send me the link to that and we'll put it in the
I
description
will.
below, beside, wherever it goes. Um, and then to our last three, because I say, as I know you're under time pressure, you do have to only answer one or two or three, whatever you like. It's, as I say on all of these, um, if somebody asked me my favorite book, I'd be like, but like, no, I could name you 100 books that I really, really like, and my favorite is usually the one I'm reading right now. Um, so that's why I give a choice
Sorrel,
of
it's
your favorite.
Sorrel.
Absolutely. Oh God, I never thought to mention my own. Anyway, that was silly of me, wasn't it? See, promotion, marketing, sales, really not my forte.
Yeah,
Your favorite book, your favorite phrase, or what you would tell your younger self. So, your favorite book is Sorrel. You can
yeah.
answer one of the other two.
What would I tell my younger self? I mean, we've already touched on it. The things you believe in yourself at that moment, the doubts, the fears, they're not truths. They're not truths. Don't blame yourself. And it's okay to be scared and uncertain. Doesn't mean you're weak or incapable. It's just part of being human, and it won't last forever. You're strong and
Brilliant.
you said about a phrase, you're strong and you're loved, you're strong and you're loving, you're strong and you love it. Just keep saying
Brilliant.
that.
Very good. Jane, thank you very much for your time, your vulnerability,
Thank
and
you for
your
inviting me.
honesty. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, the listeners will have got a lot out of it. And as I say, all your details will be below if somebody wants to work with you and get that access bar, something I think I need to book in. And is it an in person? Do you have to put hands on?
It has to be in person. Yeah, I
Hang
can't do
it.
it online. That's one of the, it's like I showed you what to do, and if even if they
Yeah,
just do that,
yeah.
then it's ever automatically just gone.
I'll have to find a local therapist here. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Take care now.
Thank you,
Bye
Valerie.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.